You ever feel like you've lost that spark? Like you just don't have it like you used to? Well, today we're going to show you how to fire things back up when Manny Fresh walks you through changing the spark plugs on the Can-Am Maverick X3.
Today I'm going to show you how to change your spark plugs on your Can-Am Maverick X3. Now this can be a difficult job if you make it, but I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks to make it a lot easier for you. One thing you want to do is check your part numbers on your spark plugs and make sure you have the right one for your specific vehicle. So to get the spark plugs out, we're going to need a Torx 30 and a 14mm deep socket with a 6/8 extension on a 3/8 ratchet. Now to remove the exhaust out of your way, you're going to need a 13mm wrench and a 13mm socket. We're going to remove a few things out of our way to have better access into the spark plugs. Now I got a hose and wire over here and it might seem like it's out of place, but it's going to help you get the job done easier. All right, so we're going to be working in the rear of the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and take this rear fascia off and get the exhaust completely out of the way. That way we can get to the spark plugs a lot easier. So a good habit to have when you're working on stuff is find you a little tray or a cup if it's empty, and go ahead and put your bolts in there. That way you don't lose them and you have them for later. So we'll remove the rear fascia. Now we have access to the exhaust. I like to do the springs first so that the exhaust is still solid mounted. That way you don't fight getting the springs off. This particular bike has been modified, but your stock exhaust is going to remove the exact same way we're about to do now. If you don't have the right spring tool to take the springs off, I'm going to show you a trick that can help you get it off a whole lot easier. So I got some 12-gauge wire right here. I got 2 or 3 foot of it. Go ahead and give it a little hook effect. That way you can work it behind the spring and pull it out easy. We can slip the wire through the back of the spring, bring it out and double it up. What you're going to do is pull back and down, out away from your tab. Super easy. Just repeat the step 4 times. Now, if you can't hold on to it with your hands, you can use an extension screwdriver ratchet. Go ahead and wrap it around a few times, and that way you have some more leverage to pull back on it. After you remove the springs, now we can go ahead and loosen the 4 13mm bolts holding the bracket on the bottom of the exhaust. With the 13mm open end wrench, we'll go ahead and hold back up on your 13mm on the outside. So a little patience will go a long ways here. You don't want to drop none of the nuts in the back of the transmission or anything like that, and then you have to dig them out. So just take your time and be patient and it'll come out. So once you get your last bolt out, you can go ahead and remove the exhaust. So you're just gonna kind of pick up a little bit and pull out, and it should be right out of place. Now that we got our exhaust out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and remove this exhaust vent. There's a tab holding the top of it. We're just gonna go ahead and pull back on it and get it broke loose. And then take your 7mm and go ahead and loosen the band clamp, and then you can pull it off. Once you get this out of your way, you're gonna have a straight shot to the spark plugs. Okay, so now we got access to our spark plugs. We're gonna go ahead and remove the ground wires off the coil packs and unhook a few sensors. That way we can pull our coil packs out. So the first sensor we're gonna undo is this camshaft sensor right here on top of the motor, in between the 2 coils. Go ahead and pull it and get it out of the way. We got the sensor unplugged. Next thing is you wanna unhook your 3 ground screws off the coil packs, which also hold the coil pack in place. With a Torx 30, you go ahead and just loosen them up. Once you get your 3 ground wires undone, go ahead and pop the connectors off the coil packs. On this specific model, the coil pack is built into the wire itself that hooks into the end of the spark plug. So on the Can-Am Maverick X3, your spark plugs are recessed in the head about 6 inches, and your coil pack and spark plug wire is built into one. You're gonna have to work them around the intercooler a little bit, and the intercooler piping that's gonna be directly above them. They need to come out about 6 inches before you can pull them out. They got a weather seal on the top of them. What you're gonna wanna do is twist back and forth a little bit with the upwards motion and pull it out. Once you get it out, tilt it back towards you, and you can pull it out of the block. So this is the weather strip that comes around it. You wanna make sure that it pulled off of the head and came with the coil, or if it didn't, go ahead and pull it off your head and put it back on your coil. Now you're ready to get your spark plug out of there. Now they do sell specific spark plug sockets. In this case, it's a 14mm deep socket. If you don't have a fancy spark plug socket, you can go ahead and use the hose to get the spark plug out of there. With a 1/4 inch rubber hose, you can slide it over the top of the spark plug and unscrew it and bring it out of the cylinder. Now a good reason to use this rubber hose is so that when you put it back in the cylinder head, you don't drop it in there and change the gap on your spark plug. You can be easy with it and put it down in the hole. You're gonna need about a 6.5 inch piece to get in there and have the right length. What you wanna do is slide the hose over the top of the spark plug and snug it down on there, and then you can twist it out of there and pull it out. Once you get it out, that's what it should look like right there. Now to get the other 2 out, you're gonna repeat the same process, just do it 2 more times. So using the OEM spark plug, you still wanna make sure that the spark plug is gapped correctly. They make gauges to gap your spark plug, and you can also use a feeler gauge to help with the process. All right, so go ahead and grab your new spark plug and snug it on the rubber hose. and we can put it back in the cylinder. Now, nice and easy, go ahead and line your spark plug up with your hole and put it down in there. You can actually use the rubber hose to go ahead and thread the spark plug all the way down, and then we'll put our 14mm socket on it and go ahead and tighten it down. Okay, so now that we got the spark plugs back installed, we can go ahead and install the coil packs back in there. You want to make sure they're nice and clean and that your seal's seated properly on the base of it. And then we'll go ahead and bring it in and put it down in there. As you're going down, you're going to want to twist a little bit, make sure it locks up on top of the spark plug. So this tab or holder on it is what needs to line back up with the hole on top of the cylinder head. You want to make sure that you don't mix up the wires that plug into the coil pack. If you get them mixed up, the X3 won't run right. Chances are the wires aren't long enough, but just keep that in the back of your mind. After you get your 3 connectors hooked up, go ahead and hook your 3 ground wires back up. When you're installing the ground wires, you want to make sure that you route them back correctly and out of the way of anything. You want to pay attention to where they will run over the top of the coil pack so that you can put them back the same way, and make sure that you don't pinch any of the wires around them. All right, we're going to go ahead and plug the camshaft sensor back in there that you unplugged earlier. Next thing you need to do is install your exhaust boot back on, and then install your exhaust. I'll show you a few tips and tricks on how to get the springs back on. So I like to take the clamps on and turn them around so that I can access them easier and come in from behind if I ever have to get back in here. So now we're going to put the exhaust back on. There is a spacer that goes in a rubber bushing right here. It should have stayed in place, but if it didn't, just make sure that it's still there and it's lined up where it needs to be. So go ahead and line your tabs on the end of the exhaust with your mounting points. You're going to put them in first and then just rotate up and slide into the end of the exhaust. Now when you go ahead and slide your bolts back through there, make sure that you don't push that spacer out of the back. The longer bolts are going to go on the passenger side of the vehicle. Once you get all your bolts started and you still make sure that your exhaust is slid over the end of it, you want to go ahead and snug the bolts up, but don't tighten them completely so that we can install the springs and have some wiggle room. So to reinstall the springs, if you don't have the tool, we can go ahead and use the wire again. Go ahead and put it on one end and take your other end and go ahead and hook it around the tab of the exhaust. All right, now all you need to do is pull back on the wire and hook the other end around the other tab. Take your finger and push back on the wire, get it out if it's pinched, then pull it out. Now that you got this done, you're ready to get back on the trail and go have some fun.
All right, so maybe that's not how the service manual tells you to do it, but that's how we get it done up here at S3 Power Sports. Now that the spark plugs are fired, you got that spark back in your life, now you can go rip on this thing. So, you already know what to do. Go like this video, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube page, and we're gonna keep showing you how to get it done.